Hey guys, welcome back. This is Creed Aureus here over at the Halving House. So, any of any of you out there who maybe had fallen down the Bitcoin rabbit hole a little bit, as I mentioned in past videos, have probably heard of this topic. But today we're going to watch a video about an early form of ancient money called rye stones. Now, for those of you who already are aware of rye stones and have heard this story, you know, humor me and watch and engage. Maybe drop a comment or two, and give us your opinion on rye stones. Or if you know about this and you don't want to watch, then don't watch and come back for the next one. But rye stones are a very interesting form of early money, and I think it's important to understand that just because something is strange to you or seems impractical doesn't mean that it couldn't be used as a form of money if it has certain characteristics and qualities. So we're going to pull up the video. This is a 7-minute video from YouTube, and it's it's a pretty good watch. It's let's see who's making this video here. Um, Tales of Data is the name of the YouTube account. So let's see what Tales of Data is all about. As I've said, it's nice to try to see, what we're getting into in terms of sources, reliable, unreliable, weird, off the wall. Um, this account has one video posted 3 years ago with 255 views. And this video on rye stones is all this account has ever posted. Tales of Data tries to tell stories with data, exploring topics in history, economic science, engineering, firmly guided by data. Okay, that's a nice mission statement. That's a noble cause, I suppose, but one video with 255 views since 2022 is not a remarkable track record of sustained success. Um, but nevertheless, the story of Rye Stones is interesting, and I think regardless of the kind of the credibility of the channel, you can find Rye Stone content on other channels, with a more robust credibility track record. And we will be doing other videos on Rye Stones and looking about money on this island culture of Yap. So let's get into it. 7 minutes and 36 seconds. Let's see what this is all about.
Far in the western Pacific lie the Yap Islands. For anyone willing to journey 1,000 miles east of the Philippines, these islands offer a tropical paradise and one of the most interesting examples of primitive money, the rye stones. Yapese myths say that a man, Anagumang, was the ancient navigator who found the limestone caves of Palau and returned to Yap with the first stone money. Anagumang first ordered the men to cut the pieces of.
So let's pause right there. The narrator says the money, the rye stones, do not come from the island of Yap. They come from the island of Palau and have to be transported to Yap. That's significant for later. I just wanted to point that out real fast.
Stone money in the shape of a fish. Not satisfied, he had them cut in the shape of a crescent moon. Finally, he settled on a piece shaped like a full moon with a hole cut in it for carrying, and brought it to the Yap. The first money was small and may have been used as ornaments. The hard, sparkling rock from which the money was quarried is unlike anything found in Yap. Hundreds of voyages followed Anagumang's initial excursion. The Yapese themselves had to gain permission from the Palauan chiefs of the islands and villages in which the quarry they wanted to use lay. Some returned, others did not. The hazards of the 250 miles journey to Palau in tiny canoes gave the money its value. Even with the
Okay. Let's listen to that sentence again. Not quite sure where it started, but
journey to Palau in tiny canoes gave the money its value.
there you go. One more time.
Some returned, others did not. The hazards of the 250 miles journey to Palau in tiny canoes gave the money its value.
The hazards of the journey to Palau in tiny canoes is what gave the money its value. Let's think about that for a sentence. As a sentence, it's describing a situation where, because the journey is difficult and dangerous, the rye stones they bring back have value. So what is that? What is that saying about how the rye stones are imbued with value? Just think critically about that for a second, because not only are they having to import these rye stones from a different island, but they're having to do it in a very dangerous way. And those two factors they're saying are what gave the money its value, because of the work and the risk that went into producing this money and then transporting it home. Value was imbued through that process.
Even with the best weather and the finest canoe, the trip took a week, and the conditions often were far from ideal. An entire expedition could be lost in a storm. Often, pieces of the money were given the names of men who died bringing it to Yap, and stories of their deeds passed along with their money. Rye stones as sound money. Unknowingly, the Yapese had discovered something that, given their circumstances, ticked many of the boxes that defined sound money as first documented by Aristotle. Scarcity. The stones were only accessible across 300 miles of open sea. Durable. They were made of stone. Recognizable. Its shiny quartz-like surface was its main attraction. Divisible. Limestone is one of the easiest stones to carve and holds great detail. Fungible. The quality of stone was consistent, making each rye stone interchangeable. Portability is the last of the 6 key characteristics of money and the most obvious drawback of rye stones. Transporting these enormous stones manually across open water was particularly challenging, as
So right there, we heard the narrator lay out what he says are 6 important characteristics of money. And the last one, the final one, was portability, which was described as the biggest drawback of rye stones as money, because of the effort and the risk it took to not only get them back to the island of Yap, but also to move them around the island of Yap. But he cited some other characteristics, some we've heard before, others not. The scarcity, the durability, the recognizability, divisibility, are all, according to the narrator of this video, important characteristics of good money. Whereas the rye stones, they did have all those, and their one drawback was the portability factor, obviously, because they're massive stones. Let's listen to the characteristics again and see if you agree with what's being said.
quality of stone was consistent, making each rye stone interchangeable. Portability is the recognizable, durable.
There we go.
The stone
There
as first documented by Aristotle. Scarcity. The stones were only accessible across 300 miles of open sea. Durable.
Durable.
They were made of stone. Recognizable. Its shiny quartz-like surface was its main attraction. Divisible. Limestone is one of the easiest stones to carve and holds great detail. Fungible. The quality of stone was consistent, making each rhinestone interchangeable. Portability.
Just to be clear, and I know that we're targeting an audience here that is maybe less financially engaged than experts in the field of money and finance. Fungibility just meaning any rhinestone is interchangeable with any other rhinestone given size and weight measurements are consistent. So the same way you have a dollar that's clean and crisp, and I have a dollar that's, dirty and wet and has holes in it, our dollars are still worth a dollar. We could trade them, we could use them at the same stores, and they'll be accepted as money. That's what the fungibility means. And I don't want to assume that anybody watching already knows what some of these concepts mean. This is our third video into this pilgrimage here of discovering money. So I just want to make sure that we're being crystal clear as to what some of these words are actually trying to tell you.
Is the last of the 6 key characteristics
now
of money and the most obvious drawback of rhinestones. Transporting these enormous stones manually across open water was particularly challenging, as was physical exchange. Visiting Europeans in the 19th century brought iron tools with them, enabling excavation of even bigger stones. The largest was 3.5 meters wide and would take over 100 men to lift. But most stones were rarely moved. Instead, the largest stone.
See, this is wild to think about. Think about money taking that kind of manpower to even move it around. Compare that to your day-to-day life right now, where your money is essentially just numbers on a screen. It doesn't even really have a physical form. Sure, you can get paper dollars from an ATM. Fine. Most money's not paper. It's barely even physical anymore. It's just zeros and ones in a computer database in your USAA or your Wells Fargo or Bank of America or your Chase Bank app. It can move around at the speed of light instantaneously. Imagine living in a monetary standard where you would need up to 100 men to even move a piece of the currency. That's wild to think about. But because the other positive qualities of money were present in rhinestones, the portability factor was kind of pushed to the back. It was deprioritized because it had the other qualities of good, stable, sound money. That is mind blowing if you really think about a society and a local economy functioning with that type of money. It's interesting.
Loans were only exchanged for the most significant reasons, such as dowries or building alliances. Many were abandoned on Palau, while some were lost at sea, but that didn't really matter to their function as money, as they could still be traded just like those that were visible within the villages of Yap.
Okay, so think about that. He says a rhinestone might have been lost at sea, but it could still be used for trade. Can you imagine if your friend gives you an envelope full of $20 bills and you lose it somewhere, but you both know that you did once have it, you just don't know how to retrieve it. And at some distant point in the future, now you're in a situation where you need to pay him for something. And you say, hey, man, remember that time you gave me all those 20s? Man, you're not going to believe this. I lost them. And he's going to say what? He's going to say, well, your word is good, my man. I believe you. And those bills are out there somewhere. And I'll accept that as a form of payment. In fact, I'll even tell the next person when I go to spend my money that there is an envelope somewhere of $20 bills, and it's out there. You got to trust me, man. I'm telling you the truth. Imagine an economy functioning where the the interpersonal trust between individuals was such that even when money was lost, but you kind of knew where it was, you just you couldn't resurrect it, that the transaction was still viable. That's wild. That's wild.
Characteristics of rye stones, the way they were sourced, traded but not physically moved, and ownership recorded in a shared oral ledger has led to comparisons to Bitcoin. But today, rye stones are just a tourist attraction because the increasing outside influences of YAP eroded the most crucial of their characteristics as money, scarcity. Scarcity and the demise of rye stones. In 1871, an Irish sea captain named David O'Keefe was shipwrecked on Yap. In return for food and shelter, he helped carve the rye stones and realized that this presented a great business opportunity. He wanted to buy coconuts from the locals, but they weren't interested in external forms of money. So he brought equipment to Palau to quarry rye stones and presented them as payment on Yap. Most rejected them because they hadn't been created in the traditional way. To use a Bitcoin analogy, the required proof of work hadn't been done. Unfortunately, some locals were willing to trade with O'Keefe, which was the beginning of the end for rye stones as a currency, as it undermined the critical element of scarcity. From rye.
So let's just say that differently. This person has discovered or learned or through technology become able to generate more rye stones, or to get them from their source Palau and move them back to Yap in a more efficient, easier way. But a couple things are happening here. They're cut different and they're identifiable as new money, number one. So they're not given the same valuation as the old money, right? And then number two, you're introducing more money into the circulating supply of the currency. And what is the end result there is the devaluation of the rye stones that were present to begin with. So this is interesting. With my 12-year-old son, I like to I've been using this example since he was much younger, and he was kind of into these Pokemon cards. Right now he's 12, he's not really into those anymore. But the point remains is there's some of these Pokemon cards that are legitimately high-end collector's items, and others that are mid-level collector's items, and then there's a ton that are just cards. They're worth nothing, they're valueless, they're part of the game, but in terms of collection and an investable return, they're useless. So some of these high-end cards, there's one in particular called a Charizard. There's different versions of it that are sell for 50, 75, 100, $150,000 depending on the quality of the card, the version, etc. All these different features are what give the card its value. But I would tell my son, I said, you have this really rare Charizard, great, good for you. A lot of people want it, you could sell it for a lot of money. What if I suddenly have 5 Charizards of the exact same? And he thinks about it. He says, well, mine would not be as valuable. And well, why won't it be as valuable? Well, now there's not just one here in the house, there's 6. And that brings down the value. So it's easy to think about when you think about Pokemon cards or rye stones. I mean, I think it makes sense. But that same principle really applies to anything that's being used as money. That when the supply is expanded, the value of the rest of the outstanding supply of money decreases. So this individual here is imported rye stones that are not quite the same. They're not quite manufactured the same way. They look a little different. They're valued less, and they're expanding the supply of rye stones on the island. Very interesting. Even even the ancient island of Yap was not immune to the inflationary pressures of money supply
Stones to
expansion.
Bitcoin. Humans need money as a means to an end. It's how we transport the energy we expend in our labors across space and time. And as Aristotle,
That, hold on, we got to hear that again. We got that. Write that down.
humans need money as a means to an end. It's how we transport the energy we expend in our labors across space and time.
It's how we transport the energy we expend in our labors across space and time. That needs to be very carefully thought about. And essentially, what if I could reword that in a simpler way? Money that I earn today through work, I don't want to spend it today. I want to save it, but I need to transport it across space and time so that it retains the same value in correlation to the energy I expended to get it today. Now I'm going to spend it in the future, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but I need the energy that I'm expending now to time travel to the time that I need to spend it, an undetermined time, and I need it to retain the same value it has now. That's the point of money, a point of money, not the point. Obviously, it's a medium of exchange, but being able to hold the value of your energy expenditure in the form of labor through time. Right? Do your dollars do that? Think about whether the dollar that was in your savings account 5 years ago is worth the same now. And if you're saving in a form of money where that's true, good for you. You're already ahead of the game. You probably don't really need to be watching this channel. But that sentence is important. I'm going to go. I want to hear it one more time. That's a critical sentence.
as it undermined the critical element of scarcity. From rhinestones to Bitcoin, humans need money as a means to an end. It's how we transport the energy we expend in our labors across space and time. And as Aristotle discovered, the most effective money that is described as sound or hard money has very specific characteristics. When a superior form of money is discovered, as happened on Yap, the old is inevitably abandoned for the new. If that weren't the case, we'd still be using beads, coconuts, shells, salt, or Yap stones, all of which have been used as money at some point. Of course, we're not still using them. Each were discarded in favor of sounder money, and when you think about how money naturally evolves in that way, it should make it easier to understand why the money we take for granted might be replaced by something greater. Just as the weakness of rhinestones was relative scarcity, it might be a surprise to you to know that the money we all use today isn't scarce. Till next time.
All right, and that's how the video ends. You know, it's interesting. Something that was said there at the end that was kind of said in passing, but is super important, is that money evolves and is replaced by something better. And that new thing might be money for a time, but then inevitably that's replaced by something better. And that's the natural evolution of money. And as important as it was that rhinestones came into being a sound form of money for the Yepes people, the scarcity issues they ran into diluted the value of the currency, and it became less valuable and less valuable until it stopped being money and it was replaced by something better. And that has happened time and time and time again. And it wasn't because someone decreed through a piece of legislation that you have to start using rhinestones as money, and then, oh wait, stop, never mind, you're not using rhinestones as money, now you have to use this thing as money. It wasn't through some edict from on high. It was just the natural experience of the individuals transacting in that currency and how market forces changed and adapted, and the money either remained sound and kept up with the pace of evolution or it didn't. And I think rhinestones are a really interesting topic. I first learned about rhinestones through the book The Bitcoin Standard, written by Seyfedina Moose, and future videos on this channel will assuredly pull excerpts of that book, because it has absolutely phenomenal points about the origins of money, and why certain money works well and some doesn't. Um, but even near the end of that video, the narrator said, he said it so casually that the money we're using today, he just blatantly said it, it's not scarce. It doesn't have even a feigned kind of fake aspect of scarcity to it. I mean, maybe people think that we're still on some type of gold standard. I don't really know. Um, but there doesn't seem to be much awareness that scarcity is an important feature of money. It is ultimately what drove rhinestones out of their monetization phase, when somebody figured out a way to get more onto the island faster, essentially counterfeiting them. Um, yeah, interesting to just say it like that. And I feel like that should hit a little harder. But I don't know. Maybe that's we'll do more videos on rhinestones. It's a very interesting topic. But uh, but yeah, drop a comment. What do you think? Good video? Bad video? Should it be deleted from the internet? Would you share it with your friends and family, your parents, your coworkers? Is there anything to be learned here about how you want your money to be, about how to transport the energy of your labor forward through space and time? Would you trade in your bank account right now full of ones and zeros, um, for a rhinestone? Maybe one that was has sunk to the bottom of the ocean, but hey, trust me, man, it's there. You can trust me. You can trust Creed. All right, that'll do it for today. Thanks for watching. This has been a Halving House production.